Hello, everyone. Welcome to our new show. It's called Financial Update. I'm Ron Jankowski with PHTV4, and I have two guests to start the show off. And the show is going to include Liz Baker and Jake Muda, both from Edward Jones, and they are both financial advisors. And welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ron. Good to be here.
Is there anything you wanted to share about your background, your financial advisors? But you do have some other credentials behind your name.
Yeah, Ron, appreciate that. We're both situated here in Payless, just right up the road, both financial advisors, and we've been part of a family office for about a quarter century. My father got going in Payless 25 years ago with Edward Jones, and credentialed as a certified financial planner, CFP, and we're here in the community to help out.
Okay, very good. And Liz, you are also a financial planner.
Yes, I'm a financial advisor. My credentials are in AAMS, which is an asset management specialist, basically. So
Good.
Yep.
Good. A good rounded out education. I have some notes here that we want to talk about, and basically, we want to start out with a market recap. If you can both expound a little bit on that and share into, and either one of you want to start with that?
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, we hope to share a little bit just at a high level on the market recap. Obviously, markets change from moment to moment. A lot happens in a given day. So we're going to try to stay high level, but share some relevant market recaps. And then the second part, Ron, I think we'll touch on more of our views towards the future. But in terms of the market recap, Liz and I will talk a little bit about the equities market or the stock market, and then the fixed income or bond market. With that said, on the equities side, we've seen a lot of good growth here in 2024. Fair amount of pessimism coming into the year, just in terms of being in an environment where the Fed has raised rates and has tried to restrict the economy, and inflation has been battling inflation. So wasn't necessarily anticipating a strong growth environment for equities, but we've seen corporate earnings come in quite strong month over month. And just in terms of the landscape of the equities market, it's been broad growth across the board, but we've definitely seen, U.S. or domestic companies have outperformed international, and also large cap companies have led the charge, particularly in the technology and telecommunications sector. Those have been the strongest performers year to date.
The technology is really driving the Dow up into record range, right?
Yes, we've seen markets continue to break records this year. We did go through a bout of volatility in August, as many probably are well
We're always
aware.
going to have a corrective, something corrective
Every
going
year,
on.
right?
Every year,
Yeah.
yes. Every quarter,
We
maybe.
expect it, yes.
Yeah, for sure. So we had, July jobs numbers came out and kind of shook the markets a little bit because they were not as strong as the prior months, and that kind of ripples out into, the equities market performance. And but we've since that time have bounced back and are approaching record highs again at this point.
And do you feel the record highs are going to continue?
That is a great question,
I'm
Ron.
blaming you, Ron.
Yeah.
That's a real question to you.
Familiar.
Well, I think part of our investment philosophy is, markets are inherently volatile. So we're going to have times where it doesn't feel comfortable to be investors. August was a good example of that. And but in the long run, we're definitely believers that the markets, continue to grind higher over time, as history has shown us.
Well, and you're talking about fixed income is going to secure you to some degree if you want to invest in it, correct?
Fixed income, we tend to put people in as a less risky option. There is still risk. Any investments that you make, there are risks involved. We want to be clear on that, but we tend to see less of the fluctuations in the fixed income market. So that's more of the, I don't want to use the word safe, but it's more of the less, you see less risk than when you put money in the stock market. So
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything further on your update, recap?
Yeah, anything further you want to add on the fixed income side?
on the
Liz?
fixed income side, we've seen good returns over the last 12 months. The previous, looking back at the 3-year mark, it's been a little bit less good returns, but the last year has been good, especially in the high yield, U.S. high yield bond space and the emerging market debt space. We think that those returns are going to continue on because of a possible Fed cut in the next few months. So,
Anything more on the market recap? We'll go into the views of you.
Yeah, I
If
think
you're
we
ready.
can kind of transition into some views
Did you
towards
wanna
I
say
did want
something?
to. I did want to say we've seen very high returns in more of the cash and money market kind of end of things, but want to just caution that those rates will reflect the Fed cut soon. So to create a diversified portfolio in the bond space is a good plan going forward. So.
And speaking of where the Fed cuts are, you have any views on this?
Yeah, Liz, do you want to jump in on that? I'm happy to speak to that too, but
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
thank
so-
you.
It's a dangerous place to commit to anything, I know that.
We can't
Yeah.
commit to anything,
Oh,
but
of course you can't.
no,
Of course.
but we anticipate that
Well, the discussion
the markets
is-
are anticipating that there will be some cuts towards the later half of the year. So
yeah, I think the market consensus at the moment, as of the date of this
Yes.
recording, is like a 25 basis point drop in rates when the Fed meets on the 18th of September. So that's the consensus right now, and I think some of the underlying causes, we are seeing inflation softening. So the last few months we've seen CPI and PCE, not to throw out too much jargon, but the consumer price index has drifted lower. So we're seeing a softening in inflation, and we've also seen a little bit of softening in the jobs market. So the unemployment rate has ticked a little bit higher. It's still a solid number historically. Last number was 4.3% unemployment, which is still, it's higher than it was, but still historically is a pretty solid jobs market. But the Fed they're trying to, tamp down inflation without, bringing too much economic hardship to the table. So
Just think, 6 months ago, or about, no one would even think there would be a rate cut.
right.
And if anything, maybe increase. I mean, there was all kinds of conversation going on in the financial market.
So much uncertainty. Yes.
Yeah, and here we are. We might even see 2 cuts this year, but for sure, we're going to see 1 cut at least. That's what we're
That's the
viewing.
views.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we're anticipating. Yep.
Anything you want to add to your views?
yeah, as I had mentioned, we've seen inflation trending lower. The Fed just had their annual meeting out in Jackson Hole, and they kind of came out with a fairly dovish stance, meaning they're, put it on the table that they're probably going to be cutting in September. But to your point, Ron, I mean, coming into 2024, market consensus was talking about like 6 or 7 rate cuts, and here we are, well into the third quarter, and we haven't had any yet. So it just speaks to the nature of interest rate movements are as difficult to predict as, the stock market movements. So that's the reality, and kind of, based on that uncertainty, it just all the more important to make sure that portfolios are positioned for different potentialities.
This is really a precarious time with election, and it affects everything, and you don't know which way it's going to go. How can anybody have a firm setting on this is what's going to happen this year? Well, if they are, I wouldn't write on that.
Yeah. That's a very, very fair point, Ron. I mean, the future's inherently unknown, right?
Yeah,
And that's, you have to stay humble in this business, but also, be proactive with
And
portfolio.
anticipate that there are going to be there's going to be volatility in the stock market. There will be interest rate changes. So again, to Jake's point, positioning your portfolio in a way that can navigate those changes well is important based on your personal risk and your time invested. All of those make a difference in how you choose to invest. So,
Being a financial advisor, it's really a tough job because you have to convince your client that I'm not telling you that this is a sure thing, but I'm going to give you a path that maybe you want to consider based on your strategy, your philosophy, whatever it is, and the size of your portfolio. And do you have earning power if something does go bad?
right.
It's a tough job, and I commend you both for being in this market and being in this industry, rather, and try to guide someone who has a small savings and they want it to grow. And so how do you do that? You have to put it somewhere by investing into something. So how do you guide them into what's the best thing to do? That's a tough call for both of you.
It's such an individualized thing, I think. I think that's what it comes down to. You mentioned so many different factors, and that's all things that we look at. And I mean, as we can remember in 2022 when rates went up and we saw inflation increase, I mean, that's the risk if you don't invest your money and you have it under your pillow or in your bank account. Inflation is cutting away at the value of your dollar, and we saw that. So to be invested is an important thing, but to invest, I think, appropriately for earning potential and time in the market and all of that is something where we work with our clients to figure out how to best fit their needs.
In planning your retirement to protect yourself, that's going to be tough to do. I know, I'm one of them.
Yeah.
And how do you project and protect yourself?
Yeah,
but
I
I
think-
give you both
yeah,
credit for
yeah.
being in this industry.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ron. And the reality is the markets are volatile, as we had mentioned earlier. So I think we take it seriously when we're working with clients. I mean, these are people that have worked hard to earn the money that they've collected, and it's a privilege and a responsibility to work with someone. And we have to keep that long-term mindset in place because a lot of times we're driven by the day-to-day, and the headlines on the business news cycle can really shake even the most stalwart investor. So we have to just stay true to core principles and keep that long-term mindset going forward.
Yep, I totally understand that. In closing, did you want to add anything to the show? This being the first show, we will be adding to it on the next show that we do, which is possibly going to be the next quarter of the year or sooner. Is there anything else that you want to add to this show, this being the first one? That you might want to also identify your office, where the location is exactly by address, and your phone number, if you would share that with the viewers.
Yeah, so our office is in Palos Heights on Harlem. It's 12306 Harlem Avenue. Our phone number is 708-671-1845. That office has been there. We've been a part of a family business for 25 years, and we've been on Harlem Avenue the whole time. So, I think important to me is that each individual is unique in their needs, and I think that's what we strive to do, is to meet them where they're at and try to guide them to make the best decisions they can. So that would be what I would like to add.
Yeah,
Anything you
appreciate
wanna
that,
add?
Liz. And the only thing I would add is it is a privilege to be able to come onto a show like this and to be available to the community. Markets are moving all the time, and the important thing is, making sure that it gets translated to the individual's situation and portfolio, and we're here to help navigate that going forward.
Well, thank you for partnering in with PHTV4. We appreciate that. And again, we will follow up with additional shows as the industry demands this communication to be out to the viewers. And otherwise, we will probably do this on the next quarterly basis for the year. And thank you both again for being with us. And so for PHTV4 Channel 4, myself, Ron Jankowski, Liz Baker, and Jake Muda from where?
Edward
Jones.
Edward Jones. We didn't
Edward
even mention
Jones.
that.
Don't forget that. Peerless Heights. We'll see you next time.